Locho sambo pa gyo trashi pa drol so suma timo nishasane karma uta varda nishri padra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Omo a guru vajradar suma timo nishasane karma Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Omo A Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karm Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajra Dar Suma Timo Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajra Dar Suma Timo Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Omo A Guru Vajra Dara Suma Timo Nisha Sane Kar Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Omo A Guru Vajra Dar Suma Timo Nisha Sane Karma Uta Vardanya Shri Bhadra Varsa Manya Sarva Siddhi Hum Dhagi Jetsun Lama Tuje Che Nyamda Dala Tuje Siksu So Gibe Shesan Dala Tendo So Oyon Sunge Nawa Tsedo So Tsechi Ningne Solwa Debe Tse Dechen Korlo Visu Lekshune Yila Sambe Dede Malepa Geme Lunge Drubra Chinge Lo Tsoni Sodan Dikdun Shakpe Tse Dunge Namke Yinsu Lekshune Lapchen Tsoni Yonsu Tsopa Dan Chera Nyetun Chanwara Chinge Lo Chanchu Parge Nyinsen Tukun Tu New Peme Sudru Lekshune Chanchu Drube Gegen Kunshish Tungen Dela Drubraj Dagi Lona Chola Chokpada Chemi Samjurangimba Shivada Chodan Tumbe Dudun Malupa Beme Lungi Drubra Chingelo Dorna Tingne Tsira Tamche Dan Techi Pardune Kaba Tamche Tu Rese Kyamne Lama Kele Me Tukche Chingi Dala Siksu Sol Gongyab Drewe Nyamda Dachala Chetsun Lame Tuje Rab Gongne Kudan Sungi Nawa Dralme Tu Nyamsu Nyongwe Kesan Tobrasho Kewa Kundu Yanda Lama Dan Rame Cheki Pela Longche Chin Sadan lam ge yun ten rab zone dorje change kopa nyur tobe shon. Pakyuke kudan da lu, pakyuke sundan da nga, pakyuke tukdan da yi, tön yerme çıktı cinge lu. Makyuke kudan da lu, makyuke sundan da nga, makyuke tukdan da yi, tön yerme çıktı çingelo. Om Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakya Munye Swaha Om Muni Mahamuni Shakya Sangye chodan soge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchra sangye drupare shoya sangye chodan soge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki Drola pinchra sangye drupare shoa sangye chodan tsogi chonamla chancho pardo dani kyapsu chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchra sangye drupare shoa. Nel Buddha, nel Dharma, and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. With the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I obtain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Good evening. Once there was a saying that touched me. It was from one of my masters who was called Kyepche Drago Rinpoche, and he told me, I used to say, I say like he would say, but actually I heard him say it to me once. He said, the first thing that we need to do for something to come about is to desire it. It's the first step. And when we observe in both our life generally, but even in like the story of humanity actually, we see that before any
before anything can be realized, it needs to be imagined, it needs to be wanted, wished for. And one of the most incredible qualities that we human beings have is our own creativity. Because we're able to imagine. Creativity is one of the most important qualities that we have. When we think, some technical difficulties. Streaming some. If we observe this ability to organize, I mean, even I would think that ants and bees have better qualities than we do. I mean, many insects have just incredible qualities. Other animals have this ability of intuition. Birds, for example, birds know that if in that year there will be hurricanes or not, for example. Something that we're just not able to understand scientifically. Even if we can't understand something scientifically, if we don't know when a hurricane will come or not, there are birds that when they go off to migrate, that according to how the storms will go, they will leave sooner or later. They know. And even today, I mean, the scientists they're mystified. I mean, how is it that the birds are able to know when we, with our great computers, are not able to figure it out? There's animals that have amazing qualities, like organizational qualities or physical force. But a quality that we human beings have, which is quite particular, that is for our better or worse, is our ability to imagine, to create mentally realities, to create stories, to create entities, beings, even like fiction, that have enormous power, stories, concepts. This imaginary world is a crazy power. At the end of the day, if we look at what a country is, it's a concept. There are many people together who have established rules, etc., but there's an identity based on a concept. As is the same for religions or great commercial entities. But we have this ability to imagine, to create things. How can we call them? Mental things, that are able to unite people and direct actions. But the main point that I would like to remind you is this ability to create through our imagination. Something really beautiful that unfortunately we lose as we get older, as we grow up, is allowing ourselves to dream, to imagine, to create. I remember once someone had me do an exercise many years ago. It was the idea was to be faced with a certain difficulty, and then ask yourself what solution do you have? And so one would need to find all solutions, no matter how crazy. And here I saw, for example, with the construction of the temple, I mean, there were some difficulties, and every once in a while I would make like a kind of joke to say something absolutely absurd, when actually there was a part of that crazy idea that helped resolve the problem. So when we allow ourselves to imagine even the impossible, even the absurd, that allows us to see things with different, from a different point of view, with different perspective. We have this tendency that when we're still children, we find ourselves in front of situations, with this body and this gross mind. For the first time, we're faced with new situations that we need to know, and so we acquire a lot of information, and gradually we start to connect one experience with another, a concept with another, and we construct our world of view little by little. And so the first time I find myself in front of a stone with light, I say, "What is that?" And I start connecting until at a certain point I attribute. What I do is that we're not open anymore to meet, to know the stone. What we do is we recall. We recall, and there's an enormous difference between knowing and recalling. When we're knowing or meeting, we're very open to many possibilities, and when we recall something, we take one choice, one possibility, which is an experience that we lived previously, and we apply it to the situation in which we find ourselves in the present moment. The more we go forward, our tendency is to recall more and more, and to know for the first time less and less, until we get to a situation where one even is afraid of what's different. One is afraid of knowing, because it seems that reality needs to be perceived through experiences that have already been acquired. And so when there's something that I don't know, it's frightening. When there's something different, it's frightening, as if I've lost my reference points, my basis. If we analyzed a little bit, we would see that even what we are recalling, in reality, we could open ourselves up to know it differently. We could open ourselves up to see it from a different point of view. This is also possible. So let's try for just a minute, let's try to observe this mechanism of knowing and recalling. I see something. What appears to my eyes are forms and colors. I live a certain situation. I listen to words. And what do? I do a kind of research in my past experiences and in the knowledge that I've acquired, as if I had some kind of database, and I do a research through this database, and I take the one that's the most evident, and I try to apply it to the present moment, like these facial recognition software. It takes measurements of someone's face and looks through the database, and it tries to match up those measurements to see if that person, if there's a match. We do the same thing, but what we do is the data that we've inserted are static, and instead the reality we perceive is in movement. And very often, the value that we attribute is not very detailed or specific. It's quite coarse. And so what happens is it adapts to many situations. What happens is that everything is in constant transformation, and things are not like that. I mean, so recalling constantly that takes away the possibility to see, to see the things that we didn't see before, to experience things differently, to see subtleties. So creating and dreaming and imagining. It's very important if we're able over time to, I don't mean to say take, I mean each one has its own experiences, but to dedicate some time to creativity, dedicate some time to imagining, to saying, okay, I can do like this, or I can do like that. Maybe this could be like this, or this could be like that. And I don't mean just to be daydreaming. This is another topic. I mean to permit ourselves to imagine. And with this, one of the greatest strengths that guides us in our lives, in addition to our imagination that gives a lot, is our worldview, is the paradigm within which we live. And it's at the basis, like within this paradigm, there's an important component that is called faith. Faith doesn't mean, in this context, to believe in something that is inexplicable or believing in a superior force. Normally, when we in our Western context, when we say this is a person of great faith, oh, because you are someone who has faith, normally what we mean is believing in something like God or a reincarnation, or believing in something that goes beyond our gross, coarse perception of our direct senses. But in this context, in reality, when we talk about faith, we mean something that goes beyond all of that. Or I don't know if it's beyond, but it's just different. Faith means what I believe in, what exists, what is beneficial. The definition of faith that is given, speaking Tibetan, which means believing in the existence and the qualities and the functions of something. So if I have faith in water, it means that I believe that water exists. I believe that I can get water. It's possible to get it. It's a reality. And I believe that water has characteristics of being clean and fresh, and has abilities. It can eliminate thirst. It can eliminate dirt. I can wash with water. This means having faith in water. Faith in itself there are three different types called. There are other types of faith as well, but this first faith is the faith based on something that is said to us by someone that we trust. someone talks to me about someone, I don't have my own experience with that thing. I don't have a direct experience, but I believe in it. It's it's similar to what's called blind faith. This is like this because they told me that it's like this, and it seems like this type of faith is for the religious types or those who just believe and just follow with the closed eyes. But I ask myself, okay, it's not. Let's say the other types of faith would be better, but in our daily life, I mean, how often are things said to us that we believe without having a logical reason and without having a direct experience, just because we've been told like this. When we read something in the news, when someone tells us something, when the neighbor speaks badly of the other neighbor, or any kind of information that we receive, I mean, how often do we believe what's told to us because it's said or was written? There's also this way of saying, when someone says something and you say, well, where's that written? As if having something in writing would have more value. Just to have a little bit of awareness. I mean, how often do we receive information of things for which we do not have a direct experience or a logical comprehension to understand it well, but regardless, we still believe in it. I mean, much more often than we can imagine. And so these types of informations actually shape over time a big part of our worldview. Little by little we construct, okay, this is good, this is not good, because this is like that. On the basis of what? Oh, because someone told me. And then after a while we're sure about it and we don't even know why. We end up believing in things that we've never seen, but we just, at a certain point, it's like that. Yesterday I was talking to somebody. I was walking in the woods and I saw a snake. And I remembered a few years ago, or last year, I don't remember anyway. A few years ago, I was in Indonesia, and one day I was walking through the jungle, and I had a flashlight. And at a certain point, I found myself with an enormous python in front of me, and it was just enormous. I really got scared. We turned around and I started running, and the imagine of that snake just stayed with me for days and days. And then speaking with people who lived there, oh yes, there are two types of snakes. There are two snakes around here, and one that one we're trying to find, and I never find it. And then talking to someone, I said, do you remember seeing the snake? I told this story so vividly that for this person, it's as if this person had seen it, but was not really sure, and wasn't sure if he had actually seen the snake, or just thought that he had seen it because I had talked about it, and he had this memory as if he had seen the snake, but actually hadn't. I mean, how many memories that we have, or that are not true. We're mixing it up with our imagination or with, stories that were told to us. We call this our reality. It's also, when we talk about trauma, It's not, objectively, it's not that important what actually happened. What's important, what's important is the subjective reality of that person. You know what they live, because that's what it leaves its mark on the person's mind. So all of us, and even the non-religious types, without offense, you know, those who believe that they are people of faith and people who are not of faith, you know, in the end, they're all people of faith because we believe in certain things without having ever seen them, without ever having understood them. They've shown us Mars. Have you seen Mars? Or did you see a video with a sound of wind of some kind of desert of who knows where? Could be Mars. I mean, I don't want to go into any kind of conspiracy theory. I want to stay far from that, but you know what has been shown is a video, you know, and in the end, you know, what did it really change? But beyond this, what I mean to say is that when we receive information, that we're told this is this, and often we have to believe or not, because we don't have the tools to have our own direct experience, or to use our own reason or a logical process that's based on based on our own experience. And this is true for many things. Once I saw the same news piece told by two different news channels. It was BBC and CNN, and they were giving the same news information that had to do with the US or England, that were selling weapons to Pakistan. I don't remember which, and there was one country that was pro, and the other one was against it. So the exact same news was told completely differently. I mean, the interviews were totally manipulated, and that really showed me, that I can't really trust what is told to me, because it's somebody's point of view, somebody who's sharing something with me, who has his own point of view. But very often we just believe without asking why, without following a deeper analysis, etc. So normally this type of faith is based on the trust that we have in the one who is sharing the information. This is fundamental, because it's not enough to believe in something just because someone tells me. It needs to be based. It needs to be based on. So, for example, when we talk about media or communication, there are journalists that are independent, that are, have a certain level of seriousness, because we need prepared people who can have a view, like hopefully neutral view, who can share the news with a certain coherence. It's already difficult, even from just a human being, if I ask you what has happened, you're going to tell me the story based on your own attractions and aversions. This reminds me of something that happened in Nepal. So on one side, there was an organization for human rights that was very proud that they were taking away child labor, so the children weren't forced to work anymore. And from this point of view, we would say that that is right. On the other side, A friend had gone a few years before in the small villages, and going into those small villages, he found like children who were practically orphans. I mean, they either were without parents, or they weren't being taken care of. They were almost they were abandoned, and so they were working. They were working by breaking up the gravel on the road. They had these small little hammers, and they were there just breaking up the stones to be used for gravel, to then be used for cement. And he was so sorry about this. He was able to bring these children to his factory, to Kathmandu, and so he housed them, he gave them food, and he taught them a trade, because he said even if they had gone to school, then they wouldn't have been able to do much with their lives. But he taught them how to make carpets, and he paid them as much as he paid the adults, even though at the beginning their work was just to be thrown away. But by teaching them a trade, they had a guaranteed future. Instead, when this organization broke up, this child labor, he had to send them back where they had no future. So here we have a very simple situation, actually. I mean, can children work or not? The same story can be told from very different points of view. And if I ask somebody, what happened, and you tell me your version, you're going to use the filter of yourself to tell this story inevitably. So even in our ordinary daily life, when we ask someone what happened, tell me what happened, we need to always to keep in mind that there's this filter of that person, of his point of view, his view. And let's remember that when we listen, there's also the filter of ourselves, So it's quite difficult to find, or to not say impossible to find, an objective reality. So when someone tells us something, I mean, how much can I trust? First of all, I need to develop a relationship of trust with this person, the person who is explaining, who tells me this information or explains things to me. So it's important for us in our lives to find people who have more experience than we do in different sectors. People that we can trust. I mean, I didn't study medicine. I don't have a deep understanding about my body and pathologies and treatments. And when I go to someone called a doctor, and I show my symptoms, I need to have trust in the doctor. If he says, you have this pathology, maybe he tells me a word I don't even know what it means. And then afterwards, he explains to me this, because, so maybe it says this and that, maybe a part of logic I understand, and maybe other parts I don't understand. So based on what can I trust? A part based on my intuition and this human feeling. And then there's an important part, which is once you tell me something and I see if it works or not, if it's coherent, and little by little I build up a relationship of faith and this trust. This is incredibly important also in our society. I mean, we create our society based on our relationships based on this trust. Starting from our parents and our teachers, our friends, our spiritual masters, we construct a worldview based on this faith. Or am I wrong? seems like this to me. So we're all women and men of faith. And it depends on the social context, of cultural context in which we were raised, the influence of the influence of those who were around us. Depends on that. It's going to shape our ideas until we have our own experiences and we have our own reason, and then we reinforce certain beliefs and we make new ones. I mean, this is part of our own path. So this is just to say that this first type of faith that seems like blind faith, something far from us, is much more present in our lives than we imagine, and it's not something negative or wrong. But we need to be careful. We need to be careful about who we trust, and then also a big part of our worldview. We believe in it without even knowing that we believe in it. I mean, we were raised within a worldview where many beliefs were transmitted through stories that we heard when we were children, through archetypes that were transmitted to us, through the cultural, the social context in which we were raised. What's right, what's wrong, why it's like this or why it's like that. I mean, many things come from our education. There's an example I've used many times, but I like it, so I'm going to repeat it. It's like, for example, what is the right color for boys and girls? If we see a boy who goes to school and we want to, should we dress him in pink or in blue? Normally we would dress him in blue, unless we want to be, just different and against everything. But normally the color for boys is blue and the color for girls is pink. Just look at my little dog. She has a pink collar. So what happens is we create this idea, more than create, we have this conviction, this strong conviction that the color for the boys is blue and for girls is pink. And if we ask people, why is blue the color for boys and pink is the color for little girls? Why? What's the answer that we would normally hear or give? Because it's like this. And if we see, but instead, if a little boy is born and we paint the room pink, then we say, well, what do you want to transmit to this little boy? Historically, where did this come from? We go back to 1918. In 1918, at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, they start making colored textiles. Before, to buy colored cloth, it was very expensive. So, children would wear beige. Even if you look at old films, I mean, everyone was dressed in the same color, and those who were able to wear colored clothing were the nobles or very rich people who were able to wear colored clothing. But the common people would wear kind of a gray beige, just natural colors. And when economically, through the Industrial Revolution, when colored cloths and textiles became available, they needed to choose what color went for what thing. And so one of the first marketing campaigns for children's clothing, they followed the influence of the French nobility, where pink was the color of men and blue was the color for women, because pink was considered to be a strong color, and instead this baby blue, light blue, was a softer color. So the color for girls was blue and sky blue, and then pink for the men. And so starting in 1918 to 1920, for 2 years, they sold the clothes, blue for girls and pink for boys, and people weren't used to buying clothes every 6 months or every 2 years, but to keep the industrial machine and the economy going, they needed to create needs that were just this unreal, which is what we've all grown up in. So they turned it all around, and they did a new marketing campaign in 1920. So all the boys need to be dressed in blue, and the girls in pink. They just inverted the colors. And so now, after more than 100 years, we're still there. Pink for girls and blue for boys. And it's nothing. We're just following a marketing campaign that was launched more than 100 years ago. What I mean is that someone at a certain point decided something. It's transmitted, it goes to one, to the other, and one does, the other does, and and we start doing, and we don't even ask ourselves why. So we have faith that this is the color for boys and this is the color for girls. Why? And there's enormous quantity of concepts or values or things that we have in our that shape our worldview in our life, and we've just been following with closed eyes, without questioning or understanding why, without even trying differently. I mean, there are many things that shape our worldview that are based on faith, even without being aware of it. Someone might say, "Oh, but I don't believe in anything. I don't have faith in anything." That's not true from my point of view. I mean, from what I mean by faith, no. If you say you have faith in nothing, but do you believe in something? That you haven't understood logically, or you haven't seen, or you haven't tasted or touched. You believe in any of those things? Yes, probably many things. So you have faith. This first type of faith. It's not the right way to call it, but this kind, tangwa teba in Tibetan, but we can call it blind faith, if it's not the right way to call it. But here, this is important in our lives too. Is how it's very important to find people in our lives that we can trust. Just in the social cultural aspect in our life, it becomes very important. Our parents and our friends and professionals in our lives, it becomes fundamental. All these people who have transmitted their ideas, and we have based on that, we have shaped our ideas and our worldview. This is very important. So don't take for granted. It's important to look around and understand that if someone who grows up in a different context is going to have a different view, and it's very important. It's important to know each other, exchange ideas, and find and meet between different worldviews. But that's already a different subject. The second type of faith, which in reality is the most important faith, is called Tepa, which is the faith is based on a direct experience or on a logical understanding. The example that I've always given is if someone comes to me and says that fire burns, you see that object called fire. If you touch it with your hands, you're going to hurt yourself. It's going to hurt. Someone, maybe someone tells me, maybe someone I trust tells me about it, and so I believe it. But I've never touched the fire. But if someone else comes to me and tells me that fire doesn't burn, fire doesn't burn, and didn't want to tell me about how beautiful fire is because didn't want me to develop attachment towards fire. Maybe I changed my mind, but then if someone says, okay, fire burns, let's see if it actually does. I get close, I go there close with my hand, I start feeling that it's hot, then it starts hurting, and it's burning. Okay, yes, fire burns. Afterwards, 1,000 people can come to me to tell me that fire doesn't burn, but I won't believe them because I've had my own direct experience. And for this, the most important part about faith is believing that it's a belief, it's a faith that is based on one's own direct experience. What I've heard, what I've touched, and Rinpoche would say, what we can see with our own eyes and touch with our own hands, feel, experience it ourselves. Personally, I've had crazy experiences on things that I'm just not able to explain. But I need to have faith in my own direct experience, not necessarily understand exactly how it all happens. Otherwise, it can be like, once a scientist called David Schreiber. He's already passed away. He was very special. I met him together with Lama Gangchen, and once we were together in a kind of pre-conference. There was a big conference, and the day before, those who were participating in the conference, they were almost all doctors, mostly psychiatrists or doctors in general. The only non-doctors were Lama Gangchen and me and myself. And so there was this closed meeting. And so this scientist who wrote these two bestsellers, he gave a presentation that was really beautiful, very different. It's very different, actually, to see a presentation done exclusively for doctors and a presentation for the public. And in this presentation, he questioned whether something is. He was questioning the validity of things, and he was looking at experiments with acupuncture, and it was an experiment where they would put needles in points of the foot. I think it was like I can't remember exactly, but maybe the left foot. It was maybe the small toe and the middle toe. It was to stimulate the vision to eyesight. And as they were putting the needles in, they had a machine that would measure the brain waves in different parts of. It did just the brain waves, and so they could see that by putting. Could see that by putting in the needles in those parts of the foot that had a relationship with the parts in the brain that had to do with, for example, vision. And so So they would see, like by putting in the needles, it would increase the brain activity of the eyesight. And so his question was, is this proof that acupuncture stimulates the eyesight? So an ignorant person like me would say, sure. Instead, no. Because it's not proven, because we don't understand why. Since we cannot explain why it happens, it's not proof, and it's not valid. And at the end I thought, well, this experiment proves two things to me. One, that point stimulates vision, and also it also proves our ignorance of not knowing how. But what happens with this is that there are different things that we experience directly and we're not able to explain. So, just in this immediate experience, I'm talking, and I can even talk softly, and you can still hear me. I can speak, and most of you are kilometers and kilometers away, and you can hear me. And those of you who are here, even just a few of us, you can hear my voice amplified here. How is that possible? Could someone explain to me? Most of us, most of us, are we able to explain technically that the voice goes into this small thing and goes through this wire? Are they just small little beings inside that are just repeating to each other what's being said? How is it all happening? Or to take like a signal, like an analogical sign that is transformed into 1 and 0, into something digital, and is made into information package that goes through a net, and then one packet goes in this way, another one goes to another way, and then it's united, and everyone at home who's watching and listening can see an image. Can someone explain how this happens? No, but we have faith that it's real, don't we? Because we're experiencing it, even if we don't understand it. For me, for example, I've had experiences, so-called mystical experiences. And for me, mystical is an experience. It's just something that we can't understand. So if that's true, then speaking by the telephone is very mystical, isn't it? So to watching, the internet, wow. I remember the first time there were people in a village in Tibet who had never come had never seen certain houses or buildings. We went into an elevator. For them, it was something incredible. It was magical. We have these mystical, incredible experiences. Today I can just clap my hands and the lights turn on in Tibet and I don't know why, but in China and Tibet, it's everywhere. In the monastery, in the monastery in Tashilhunpo in Tibet, you just clap your hands and the lights turn on. It's a mystical experience, isn't it? You do like this and the light goes on, but there's even light at night. Can someone explain to me, really, with clarity, why there were, how light comes about, or how, of course, it's possible to understand all of it technically, but can most of us explain this point by point? No. I myself, no. I admit my ignorance. These are, we can call them mystical experiences, but someone could say, no, these are not mystical experiences because it's possible to explain, to understand. And at that point, even what we call mystical experience, there are people who do understand. I mean, it requires a path of knowledge and experience to understand that most of us have not had. It's a little bit like what's a miracle, for example. They're beautiful things that happen that we're not able to understand. How come? For me, miracles are these are miracles. So it's important to believe in our experience, even when we're not able to understand how it came about. For example, I have a lot of faith in holy places because I've had different experiences of going to certain places and having a mental clarity that I don't normally have, or having an inner experience of peace or joy according, to different places. I mean, there are some places, like every time I go to this one place, I have the same experience. So I have faith in that. I believe in it based on my own experience. Lama Gangchen Rinpoche more than once told me things that at the time made no sense. It seemed even wrong. And 10, 15 years later, he was right. After various experiences that I had. I mean, how is it that he knows, etc.? I mean, I don't know, but I have faith. I had faith, though, because I had had my own experiences, When someone comes and says, don't believe in this, or you can see clearly you can see that he can understand what you're thinking. I don't know how it's possible, but every time it's spot on. So I believe, I have faith. There are many things that we're not able to believe, but we can perceive, we can feel, and it's important to believe in our own experiences, our own senses, and always we should remember that it's subjective and illusory in a certain way, because even our own direct experience it comes through this filter of self, so it's not objective, it's always subjective. If I'm on a plane and then I've arrived by plane and I tell you, today I saw many, many small houses. I mean, they were tiny houses. How is it possible that they made these tiny houses? I mean, they could rest in my hands, and it seemed that they were just like tiny little people that lived in these houses. When we're far, obviously, the perspective changes. It appears as if they're small houses, but using our reason, we know that it's not like this. But our senses trick us. This is clear, isn't it? So our own experience is very important, but we should also we can trust it up to a certain point, and we can also have contradictory experiences. But it's important to have faith in our experiences, especially when the same thing happens over and over again. Together with this, that second type of faith is based on a path of logical understanding, where not deductions, but like do some correlations, this is like this because that is like that. And so we're going to, so the classical example is, I know that there's fire behind the mountain because I see the smoke. Wherever there's smoke, there's wherever there's smoke, there's fire. I know that there's fire behind the mountain because I see the smoke, because wherever there's smoke, there's fire. We can make many, we can use our reason here. It's very important to analyze, to observe, and get to one's own conclusion, and with, so that within our worldview, that makes sense. Because I repeat this, that within my own worldview, because maybe what makes sense to me maybe doesn't make sense to you, because it's based on an assumption. It's very difficult to have an understanding of something that is not based on an assumption. What is an assumption is believing in something without first having had a direct experience or believing, or a logical inference. In our lives, it's important to look for the truth. Look for, that our own experiences match our understand that what we've lived, so really try to believe in something that makes sense to us. If someone could ask, but how is it possible? What should I have faith in? What should I believe in? If reality is subjective, it's like once journalists in Brazil many years ago came to me, if I remember well, it was a journalist from MTV. Her name was Astrid, and we were walking along the road, doing this interview in very MTV style. And at a certain point, she asked me, "Do you believe in reincarnation?" I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, if it didn't exist, I would say, well, even better. Personally, I would be much happier if reincarnation didn't exist. Not for me, because I have a beautiful life. I live in a coherent way, and I'm not afraid for my future. But I look around and I see the chaos that exists. I could think, if death were the end of everything, then that would be better, but I don't believe in that. For me, it's within my worldview. It's much more coherent, even using my reason and using also my intuition, my feeling, that I've had since I was a child. So believe that after death there is a continuity, because before birth, there's something that has come before that, without going into the details of the how and the why. In the Buddhist philosophy, there's a whole part of debate. There's the whole explanation of the existence of reincarnation. Then, to understand that, you would have to look into the continuity of the mind. And the mind has no beginning or end, so it begins with that. But in any case, there's also a scientist, Amit Goswami, who wrote a book. He's a quantum physicist, and he proved the existence of reincarnation through quantum physics. Physics. But beyond all of this, following my own reason, my own understanding, it seems much more understandable. It just closes up so many things. It seems so much more logical that there's continuity with life, and instead of someone just coming, it just comes and is born out of nothing. This is my point of view. It seems a bit totally illogical that one is just born like this, but then just continues forever. But it doesn't seem logical to me. But that's not the subject, the topic of tonight. But if reality is subjective, what's better, to believe that there's to believe that reincarnation exists or not? So what is right, to believe in this or to believe in that? Sincerely speaking, according to my own view, we live in a subjective reality where the important point is not so much about believing in this or believing in that, or if what I believe in is right or wrong. But the main question is, by believing in this, where does it take me? Because according to what I believe, I want, and according to what I want, I act. Based on what I want, I act, and based on what I would do, I then experience. And this makes a huge difference. This is what makes the difference. It's not so much about it being real or not real, because anyway we live in a subjective reality. Even on a scientific point of view, how often has it happened that something was proved scientifically and then later they prove the opposite, because science has never changed idea or doesn't have contradictory points of view. I mean, that exists. So it's not that they're fixed ideas necessarily. So it's important for us to observe our experience and direct our faith in something that helps us live in a coherent way, to construct a reality that helps us live better. This is important. Because if someone asks me, but is it true or not, true or false? I mean, it's difficult to answer that question. I personally, for many things, I don't have the means to be able to say this is like this or this, or like it's like this or like that. I can give my point of view but you come from a different point of view, a different context, a different experiences. So you see differently. So when we ask ourselves, what is reality? What's most real is that we live in a subjective reality, and so it exists on the perception of each one. But I'm sure that love brings happiness and well-being, and that anger generates suffering and conflict, that respect and gratitude is good for us, that arrogance and the sense of payback and resentment is harmful. I've never seen anyone who was satisfied, happy, balanced by cultivating dissatisfaction, aggression, anger, resentment, etc. This I've never seen. I've seen people with very, very different worldviews. One can believe that reincarnation exists, or maybe one believes that with death everything ends, or one can believe that life after life, one just continues to better himself, and after a certain number of lives, one becomes perfect. I've heard everything, and you can believe in so many different things, but independently of what independently what one believes, those who are able to live harmoniously with feelings of respect and love, with few desires and and doesn't have a lot of hate or anger, these people live better. And so I have my worldview. And when we talk about religion or spiritual tradition, the traditional spiritual tradition is composed of a worldview, among other things. And from my point of view, a religion or a spiritual tradition, call it what you want, is composed mostly of three things: a worldview that is handed down and taught and shared, rules of conduct, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, and the tools that are used to be able to develop the qualities, and so that one's life match that worldview. One can abandon what is to be abandoned and cultivate what is to be cultivated, whether you use meditation or prayers. I mean, there's so many different kinds of tools, but in the end, a religion is made up of these three things. We have a worldview, what exists, what doesn't exist, what is reality, how is it, who am I, who are you, what is a human being, what comes before birth, what comes after death. I mean, there are many aspects that make up a worldview. We have conduct, what is beneficial and should be cultivated, what is harmful and should be abandoned. We can call them rules. Whether they're imposed or chosen according to the tradition. There are certain traditions, certain traditions think that these rules are obligatory. Other traditions think that these rules can be selected and chosen, and then there are the tools to develop all of this: meditation, images, symbols, prayer, etc. And in all of this, in the middle of all of this, what's most important for me, excuse me if I'm a little bit boring, let me just repeat one again, the most objective part, we can call it, I mean, if we were going to use this term of objective, is what goes beyond the conceptual part. There are two parts of our mind called kundak and lenkye in Tibetan. And normally it's used in a very specific point, part of philosophy, but I'd like to use these two concepts in a more open way. Kundak are aspects of our mind that are constructed, that depend on a cultural context, a social context, or education. Lenkye, which means spontaneous, are aspects of our mind that do not depend on the social context or social cultural context or education. We can even call them universal. Love, this deep feeling of wanting the happiness of another, being able to see another and wanting his happiness. Is that a feeling that transcends cultures and education? Yes, we find it everywhere. The same thing for hate and jealousy and envy. And this is why the Buddhist teachings are so real. Even today, in our like in the social cultural context of today, which is so different because it talks about the spontaneous aspects of our lives that transcend the social cultural aspects. In some sutras of Buddha speaks of the Buddhas that came before him. And what's interesting is that when we think, okay, Buddha is the fourth Buddha of this era, and before Buddha Shakyamuni, there were other Buddhas, etc. I don't know how it is for you, but at the beginning, for me, I imagined all the other Buddhas as if they were Buddhists. One doesn't necessarily have anything to do. I mean, they weren't all there reciting Namo Gurubhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya. It's not the same religion. They were enlightened beings who showed themselves in this world and showed a path to better themselves and adapting themselves to the place and the beings that they found. So the last thing a Buddha needs to be is a Buddhist. Buddhism is a tool that is given to us to become ourselves a Buddha. But there's a sutra in which where Buddha says once you've been able to go to the other side of the river, you shouldn't be attached to the boat that has taken you from one bank to the other. The spiritual tradition, the teachings that have brought you from one bank of a river to another, from a state of selfishness to a state of altruism, it's not so important once you've gotten to the other side. Whether it's a boat that, if one type of boat brings you, and my different boat brings me, it doesn't matter, and we shouldn't be talking about which boat is better. I mean, from my point of view, what's important is not about talking about what is the right or wrong worldview, or if mine is right, yours is wrong, and much less to try to convince others of how right my worldview is. I mean, I'm ready to talk about it, but I have no intention of trying to convert anyone to seeing my worldview as being reality. But I absolutely hope that there will always be more respect and love, more concentration, more awareness. Because these are the aspects, the spontaneous aspects within us, those that go beyond the social, cultural context, that actually have the power to take us to a state of more satisfaction and happiness. And it's incredible that we put so much energy in our lives in accumulating knowledge. We have huge institutions that are dedicated to knowledge, and we want to do courses in studies in all sorts of things and learn things. I mean, I'm the first one who likes to learn things. I think it's beautiful, but the world needs. What the world needs now is not just knowledge, but instead it needs states of consciousness, pure states of consciousness. What the world needs most is love and humility and awareness and peace. I mean, beings who are at peace with themselves, love and respect. This is what we need most. Because how can I say it in a kind way? Sometimes we just go round and round with our head, We just make lots of problems. So, we can just be discussing for years. Like color is an extraterrestrial, or we can just we can also discuss whether the world is round or flat. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody actually trying to have this, trying to discuss this. It's incredible. And then I started asking myself, I've never. What would an eclipse be, for example, if the world were flat? And I was just allowed myself a little bit to review my vision, But we could spend years and our lifetimes, discussing it's like this or it's like that, or because the world is like this. No, the angels like this because the realms are like this. Because an alien is like this, or maybe the alien is like that. But at the end of the day, what really important at the end of the day is if I cultivate love and joy and stability, or if I have more anger because you say an alien is yellow and I think it's green, and then we have just create more aversion and attraction and divisions. This reminds me of the first school I went to. When I went to school, I was 2 years. It was 2 years and something. It was called a pyramid school. Imagine an alternative school multiplied by 100. I mean, it was really like the alternative of alternative schools. And then it went bankrupt, and I had to change schools. But there was a big space. I would come home and I would just be dirty from head to toe, and with mud and dirt. I just played so much. And what I learned at that school, which was really interesting, is that when I changed school, I understood. I was really behind. I hadn't learned how to read or math. Not just me, but everyone who would come from that school. But they put an enormous emphasis on feelings, on respect, on being together. And I remember when I was about 6 or 7 years old, we would try to kind of trick the teacher because we liked to play, and there was a sandbox. There was a kind of there was a kind of sandbox at the school, and it was at the center of the school. It was really big, and I remember that me, together with 2 other classmates, we did it about 2 or 3 times. So it was about the time to go back into school, back into class. We'd say, let's call everybody. Let's just all get together, and let's not go in. Let's not go inside. When the teacher calls us, then we can tell her, look how beautiful it is. We're all playing together. So, there was this idea of not wanting to go, to go back into the classroom, to bend the rules a little bit, but by giving value to being together. And I remember very clearly this scene where the teacher would come to call us all, and I would tell her, oh, look how beautiful it is. We're playing well together. And so she would see all classmates doing, all the classmates playing, one game together. She'd say, okay, stay another 10 minutes outside. And what stayed with me from this experience is that it's important to be together, to play well together, harmony in group. And so, and in Fridays, for example, at this school, there all of the classes would come together. Um, they would all come together, make a big group on Friday afternoon. There was no class, and it was total chaos. But it was a moment where we could all share it, or we'd all just play together. And years later, I realized that school. It's true that they taught very little, regarding mathematics and Portuguese, etc. But they gave me basis for very important things. Even for my other classmates, my other friends. But what I mean, up to even the time I left to India, important as from childhood, but even after, it's important to cultivate the values that we want to develop, and not just knowledge. And when I mean values, I don't mean what's right and what's wrong. I mean cultivate virtuous emotions. Learn how to direct and face our difficult emotions. Develop at least a desire to have love and respect. See the value in that. This is really important. So in this world in which we live, I think it would be very important to increase not religion, because there's the danger that a religion is lived as a means, as an objective, a means in and of itself. Sometimes I'm a little ashamed when I see activities that seem like they're trying to convince people to become Buddhist. No, I want to live in a world where there's more love and respect and harmony and coherence. It's really what we need most. And there's another topic, what I'm just going to open and close quickly because we don't have all night, but it's specifically for the young generations of today. We live in times where there are changes on a technological level that are so strong and so fast. So even that have to do also with one's own job and one's own livelihood. Maybe there's some jobs where one studies their whole life to learn certain things, and then and then with technology it's radically changed. Maybe you've studied your whole life, and then today there's a computer that can then do your job better. I'll give you an example that could seem a little bit exaggerated, but think about a doctor without getting into all the details. But what does a doctor mainly do? He observes symptoms, reads the exams, comes to a conclusion, and gives a diagnosis, and then prescribes a treatment. For example, there's a huge computer from the IBM that years ago won the prize for chess, for example, kind of artificial intelligence. I don't remember the name of this computer. Anyway, this mega computer with this artificial intelligence, that they were able to teach the computer to read the lung X-rays to see if there were signs of tumors or not. And so there are there are various hospitals where there are doctors who look at the X-rays, and then they put them into the computer to see what the computer says. And after thousands of X-rays, this computer was able to give the right answer for 99% of the time, where instead the doctors reach about a 75% of a correct diagnosis. So as human beings, being able to take information and to compute it and put it together, come to a conclusion in certain cases is not better than a computer. I mean, we have other qualities of intuition, etc. So anyway, I didn't want to talk too much tonight about that, but about artificial intelligence. But what happens is that the times in which we live with these changes that are so fast. Maybe one spends the years of his life to learn how to read X-rays, and instead today, maybe a kid learns how to use this software, is able to put the X-ray into the computer, and the answer comes out better than your own. So now what are you going to do? The same thing for lawyers and for so many other jobs, professions. Even for teaching, they've done artificial intelligence for teaching, where they study the information. What I mean to say is that certainty of a profession today is very volatile. A person needs to more and more adapt to reality and reinvent himself. And what's most important is having an emotional state of an emotional balance to be able to reinvent oneself. And there are also great modern thinkers who say that the knowledge is not the most important today because things are changing so quickly, but the ability to analyze, the ability to understand, and the ability to be flexible. These are the most important things. In big companies, for example, I've gone to many companies like to Citibank or groups in Brazil. If we ask those who work for a big company, what creates more problems for your company? The lack of knowledge of your employees, or the lack of emotional stability? This is a lack of emotional stability. If I needed to take the CV of different people, the resume of different people, and to hire and go to an HR, or when I needed to hire people, I'd like that on the resume it's written that it would be good if people would write, I'm very patient, I'm not very patient, or I'm able to listen to other people, or because training programs are easy, but where people can update their knowledge, but finding people with emotional stability, that's something different. So even from the point of view of one's profession and job, emotional stability is very important. So I think it's important, and I ask everyone to cultivate those aspects in your life that are beneficial, and make that a priority. And to do that, you need to have faith in that. You need to have faith that independently of what happens, that patience is important for me, independently of what happens, I should never hate anyone. Independently of what happens, I should always be respectful to everyone, independently of what happens. My inner level of joy and satisfaction doesn't depend on what I have or how much I have, but on what I desire, because the value of something is relative and is based on a comparison. If I have a lot or just a little, it depends on a comparison. I saw someone once suffer a lot, and it was not a joke, because his friends had bought a bank, and his friends had bought a bank, and he wanted a bank too. So I mean, everyone has their own problems. Yeah, there's someone who wants a car. There's someone who wants to buy a bank, and then there's someone who's happy to have the bus fare, and to go with the bus. So giving value to our qualities and believe in them, have faith in them. Really, so no matter what happens, we don't want to be taken by hatred or anger or jealousy or envy, etc. No matter what happens, we need to cultivate love and respect, gratitude and humility, stability, joy. And in this moment, in the moment that we're living, in particular, where this moment of coronavirus, of lockdown, of pandemic, etc., I personally believe that it's very important, even more so, to put energy into seeing and loving the other, in taking care of each other, of helping each other, and not separating or closing ourselves up It's really important. But everything starts with faith. What do I believe in? I believe that do I believe it's more important to have love, or do I think it's more important to be right? Do I think it's more important, is my inner state of peace is more important, or that things are the way I say, are the way I think they should be? So go back and look at what our beliefs are. And this third type of faith that I haven't talked about yet is a faith that is based on the desire to be and become. So the first faith, I believe in something because it was told to me like this. The second faith, I believe in something because I have a logical reason or I have a direct experience. And the third type of faith, I believe that I can do it, and I see the other that I want to become, which is it's faith in evolution, really. Not only do I believe in the importance of respect and love and gratitude and satisfaction and peace, inner peace, but I also believe that I can get there. I can be Patch, I can be love, I can be wisdom, I can be satisfaction. I believe that I can be a Buddha. And what's beautiful is that faith is something that is cultivated. Something that I've said many times is and one way of cultivating faith is advertising. When there's an ad for anything, it's to make us believe in that thing. What does advertising do? It says this thing exists, it's beautiful, and it would be good for you. That's it. Every time we see the image of a Buddha or holy beings, or we prostrate, etc., we're cultivating our faith. Not in something that will give us something. We're cultivating our faith above and foremost. First and foremost, that like when I'm prostrating to Buddha, I'm prostrating to my ability to what I can become, because the Buddha shows me what I can become. When we read the stories of the masters of the past, they help us, they show us that it's possible. So we need to see a lot of advertising, a lot of ads, receive lots of information that helps us believe in what is beneficial, what's good for us. And I repeat, I mean, it's not so much about what you believe, if you believe in Buddha or if you believe in Mickey Mouse. We can even do the religion of Mickey and Minnie, you know, we all wear big black ears. And if that would bring us more wisdom and the more wisdom and satisfaction, etc. If that worked, then you know, if it really worked, then that's great. I mean, there's the tradition of the yellow hats and the red hats, etc. Excuse me if I'm making a joke, but what's important is that our object of faith needs to help us to develop what is beneficial to us. So cultivate your faith in peace, in love, in compassion, in respect, in humility, faith in interdependence. And so in wisdom, faith and peace. And if we have faith, inevitably we will develop aspiration, desire, and then consequently we will act in that direction. So if we asked ourselves, you know, what's missing today? Faith is missing. We have faith in money and in pleasures. We have faith in a lot of things. But we need to redirect and cultivate our faith. This is the basis of all of what comes afterwards. And I'm going to conclude with just a short anecdote by Atisha, who once one of his disciples, I don't remember the name, unfortunately, I just don't give enough attention when I hear it, so I don't remember. So he went to Atisha and he said, I want to practice the Dharma. I want, you know, should I do circumambulations around the main temple? And he said, so it's better if you practice Dharma. He said, well, if I made offerings, and Atisha answered, it's better if you practice Dharma. And if I went to listen to teachings, no, it would be better if you practice the Dharma. And then he says, what does that mean to practice the Dharma? And he says, have faith, have faith, have faith, was his answer. If we believe, you have faith in something, not having faith in Buddha who is going to save me. No, it's about having faith in peace, having faith in wisdom and love, and the so-called bodhicitta. Have faith that I can make it, I can get there to be able to help others. This is very important.
Lame kutse rapten chi namkar chinle chochur gepadang losan tempe drume sasum ki drove munsela taktu ne gyur chi kewa kuntu yanda lama dang dralme cheki pela long ching sada lamge yunten rabzone dorje change kopang nyurtobe sho nimodele tsendele nime kuyan delek shin ninsen takto delek pe koncho sumke jingilo koncho sumke ngodrubo sol koncho sumke trashishon. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. Simchen neba chinyeba nyurto nele targyurche droye neni male patakto chunga mebrasho menama todan demba dan sanga dejo druba ye kandro simbola sopa ninje simdan dingyurche chonang kuna ludan simdunga neba chinyeba teda dagi sonam ki dega gyatso toparasho. In tutte le direzioni, qualunque corpo o mente, malato o sofferente che ci sia, possano essi, tramite il potere dei nostri meriti, raggiungere un oceano di felicità e benessere. Sema chusudru che lam tudru lam la parche mi yomarasho. Possa la mente diventare.
May the mind become the Dharma, may the Dharma become the path, and may the path be free from interferences.
Grazie a tutti.